Utah, November 24th, 2009. Started out as a beautiful day with blue skies and warm temperatures. Little did anybody know that tragedy was about to strike.
Dude, you're gonna look at this and be like, holy crap, can I fit through this small hole?
John Edward Jones was home with his expecting wife and daughter for Thanksgiving. With some free time and wanting to catch up with friends and family, John, his brother Josh, and 9 other friends met at Nutty Putty Cave and headed inside. Deep below the earth in the rocky, narrow limestone formations that make up the cave system known as Nutty Putty Cave, John, a 26-year-old medical student and father, is beginning to realize he's made a grave mistake. Named after the putty-like clay that fills its passages, Nutty Putty Cave is known for its tight squeezes and claustrophobic tunnels. John and his group of friends and family in the cave with him expected this, and having past caving experience, they were prepared to push their way through. Wanting to explore further, John broke off from the group and wound his way through the darkness. At last, John assumed he had found a popular passage known as the birth canal. Known for its nightmarishly tight squeeze, John exhaled to narrow his body, lowered his head, and pushed his way in. It was going to be tight. After all, he'd put on some weight since he last went caving, but he knew the birth canal opened up into a larger room. All he had to do was push forward. But the passage didn't open up. It narrowed. He pushed forward again. It narrowed further. John was now upside down, head first, in a 10-inch by 18-inch hole with nowhere to go. Discovered in 1960 by cave explorer Dave Green, Nutty Putty Cave was no stranger to accidents. In fact, there had been 4 separate rescues up to that point, of others who had found themselves stuck in the constricting cavern. They had all been successful. As John struggled to move, he could feel his heart pounding and his breath quickening. Panic began to set in. He called out to his friends, but his voice only echoed back at him from the narrow tunnel.
Help me!
His brother Josh and the rest of the group soon realized that John was missing. They searched the cave frantically, calling out his name, but there was no response. It wasn't until one of them spotted John's feet sticking up from the narrow opening that they realized he was stuck. Their best attempts to pull him out were futile. He was wedged, trapped. His brother Josh knew he had to get help, now. By the time rescue teams arrived, John had been trapped upside down for 3 hours. With his body upside down, blood had begun pooling in his brain. His circulation would soon begin slowing, capillaries leaking, toxins building up in his blood. Rescuers attempted everything they could think of, pulling with their bare hands, ropes, cutting away clothes in order to get a few extra millimeters of wiggle room. Nothing worked. Due to the angle of John's body, they just couldn't get enough leverage. Each time they made any progress, he slipped right back down with the slightest slack. They ordered vegetable oil as lubricant. They considered explosives for a brief moment. Drills proved useless as nothing large enough could fit in the space. While rescuers comforted and calmed John, they also began rigging a pulley system anchored to the tunnel's walls with a series of climbing cams, as they figured that was their best bet. As the night turned into the following morning, John's wife showed at the scene. Utah County Sheriff's Lieutenant Tom Hodgson promised her, "We'll get John out. We'll get him out for you." The scene was all too familiar for the lieutenant. Years earlier, he had been called to assist in the rescue of a 16-year-old boy trapped in the same tunnel John was. A pulley ended up rescuing the boy after a grueling 14 hours. The only difference, John was not 5'6" and 140 pounds. With the cams rigged and ropes strung, they hoped for the same result for John. They pulled. He moved. Progress. They managed to inch him up until his feet hit the ceiling. Imagine the pins and needles sensation from your legs falling asleep, the sharp pain when you stand on them or bump them. Multiply that exponentially. John's legs had been with little circulation for hours. When his feet hit the ceiling, he screamed and begged to be let back down. They realized they couldn't get him out without breaking both of his legs. Additional rescue crews and experts continued to arrive on the scene. It had been 12 hours and time was running out. They reinforced their pulley system, gathered as many men as could fit, and formulated their final plan. They would yank John out as hard as they could. They knew the pain and damage that would ensue, but the alternative was worse. They had IV medication ready to administer the moment he was out, with the goal of easing his suffering. They knew that even if they got him out, he may still succumb to the buildup of toxins in his body from being trapped for so long. Preparing John for what was to come, rescuer Ryan Schertz calmed him and gave him some Gatorade through a tube funneled into the hole. John apologized that he was overweight, making it harder on the rescuers. Ryan chuckled and assured him that he would be his workout buddy when they got him out. It had been 19 hours. Rope in hand, the men pulled and pulled. John again screamed in pain, but they continued. At last, they could see his face. He was still not free, but the end was in sight. Rescuers continued to pull with everything they had. Then, the whole situation changed. The soft limestone rock of the cave had given way from the pressure. One of the cams had broke loose and all their progress was lost in an instant. John slid back into the hole, jammed just as bad if not worse than before. Ryan had been hit in the head from the breaking rock and was bleeding. He had to leave the cave. John's dad, Dave, took Ryan's place. He joined the rescuers in the cave and immediately began checking on John. He was still responding, but his voice was growing faint. He told his dad he would die there. Dave nonetheless picked up the drill and began trying to repair the broken pulley. Then John fell silent. His breathing slowed. They brought in an intercom system to the surface so John's wife Emily could talk to him. She reassured him and told him it was okay. She told him he'd been fighting so hard. Take a short break and then we can try again. But he never responded. John Edward Jones was pronounced dead at 11:56 p.m. on November 25, 2009. With John gone and all hopes dashed, rescuers, friends, and family somberly returned home for the night. The decision was made to leave his body where it lay. The family eventually agreed that there was no point putting more people in harm's way. It wouldn't bring John back. Nutty Putty Cave was filled with cement and sealed off completely. To this day, it remains the final resting place of John Edward Jones.